And I would love it if instead of having to use the motionness of the Pro Controller, we could just have it so that could be implemented with the other joystick or something like that, because I don't like having to turn it on and flip the controller. If it was just like a analog, that would be the coolest thing ever. If you can control the glider way more with the other analog, that's what I would do.
Hold that thought, Troy. I think I've got some good news for you. Here's a clip of me playing Mario Kart Stadium. Watch my hands. How the hell did I just do motion glider without moving the controller? Well, thanks to some testing of an old theorized tech this week, the way we use motion controls in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe might soon change forever. And it's all thanks to the most overlooked part of the Switch Pro controller, the D-pad. Before I go super into detail, it's important to note that the information in this video is extremely untapped. It's highly likely that, with more eyes on this tech now, more new things will be found with it after this video releases, and there's a non-zero chance one of those findings could outdate this video entirely. What is in this video is what we currently know. That being said, what are we working with here? Well, first things first, this is not some random change added in the Wave 5 patch, like the acceleration bug from 3UP's video last month. This has been in theory for years, only having resurfaced recently. Yes, that means the tweet I made about this a couple days ago isn't entirely true. Nothing here is a new discovery, it's simply only ever been tested at surface level and seems to have a lot of untapped potential. The earliest known documentation of this knowledge is of Discord messages from Jimmy in late 2020, detailing the very strange way the D-pad operates in this game. When you're driving with the control stick and you input something on the D-pad, it overrides the stick input and fully disables it. However, with motion controls enabled, doing a D-pad input will instead override and disable motion controls. This means that when motion controls are enabled, it and the D-pad both have the same effect on the vehicle. If you know how motion gliders work, you can probably tell where this is going, but what allows them to function the way they do is the game allowing you to stack stick input and motion input on top of each other, which allows for the extreme glider movements you're all familiar with. Now that we know that motion and D-pad have the same effect on your vehicle, you can now get these extreme glider inputs by instead stacking the stick movement with the D-pad. No motion required. Like with standard motion controls, gliders are not their only use. For example, each lap of the Rainbow Road 200cc world record ends in what is called a motion hop. Rather than using motion control stacking to get an extreme glider movement, it can also be used to create tighter hops, which gains time on this Rainbow Road turn because it allows you to hop earlier and accelerate from the brake drift sooner. With this new tech, what was once a toxic strat with a steep learning curve can now, theoretically, be just one extra button press. In case it weren't obvious, this tech does not make anything theoretically faster. They're still the same motion strats, this is just another way to do them. What this does do is, ideally, make some insanely difficult motion strats much more accessible. There are countless theorized strats that, due to the precision motion controls require, have been previously written off as TAS only, but the hope is that that may not be the case anymore. However, for the time being, nobody has put nearly enough time into learning this tech to become good enough at it to actually utilize it, so from this point on, all we can do is theory craft. For one, a player looking to use this tech would want to play on a controller with no gyroscope. Getting the D-pad to function this way still requires motion to be enabled, and attempting to drive normally with motion on is still extremely annoying. Another problem to tackle is, how is someone actually going to perform this tech? Well, as it stands, there's two potential options. Option 1 is button remapping. This is, once again, something that's only ever been explored at surface level, but there's never ever been a need to go any further with it. Players have been rebinding paws to a button closer to their natural grip for years, whether it be L, L3, or whatever that player prefers. That's the only real use it's ever needed, but with the D-pad not being in a very favorable position, a good workaround could very possibly be to bind whatever motion input that track needs to a nearby unused button. That MKS motion glider clip at the start of the video has R binded to D-pad down and X binded to D-pad left, and there's countless different ways to orient these remaps, whether it be for what that track needs or simply just comfort. The only other currently theorized option is to revive the claw grip. It's never seen use in 8 Deluxe because we've never needed the D-pad for anything to this point, but it already took over one Mario Kart game in the past, so I don't think it's fully out of the cards as something with potential. Only time will tell which players will go through the learning process of D-pad tech, how they go about performing it, and what kind of results they will see. So, is D-pad tech game-breaking? No, I'm sorry for playing the YouTube game. However, does it have untapped potential? I think yes. If players put time into learning it, they will, if nothing more, theoretically have a much easier time executing motion strats, and may even make the ones that were considered task-only RTA viable. That potential is what I see as most exciting. A lot of motion strats in the past have been theorized and then immediately written off as not humanly viable. D-pad tech has the potential to change that, and even if that ends up being its only use at the top level, it doesn't have to end there. Those that are either turned off by the idea of using motion controls or simply don't have access to them can seek this as an alternative to stay competitively afloat. Either way, I would love to see development of this tech. Doing that may seem unlikely now, but it's very new to a very large part of the community. Struggling to get used to a new method of play is very common. We saw this exact same thing play out with motion gliders, and many high-level players still refuse to go through learning them. We also saw something similar in MK8 Wii U when Advantage was discovered. In that game, motion controls in the D-pad, specifically sideways re-remote, also function differently than just the control stick. However, that game just straight up gave them a handling buff on all surfaces over stick. This also presented a learning curve and overhauled every top player's playstyle, but once the community got used to it, it saw use in 35 of 48 world records. D-pad tech is very unlikely to ever be this useful, but the principle still remains that once players are comfortable using a new tech, its potential uses start to skyrocket. It's always fun seeing the time trial meta have new life breathed into it from time to time, so if you're a high-level player looking for a new challenge, learn D-pad tech. Who knows what you'll end up being able to do with what might just become the next potential breakthrough for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe time trials. Thanks for watching.